Attention all personnel. Incoming podcast. This is MASH Matters.
Welcome back to MASH Matters, the podcast celebrating the greatest television series of all time with a guy who loves the show and a guy who is on the show and also loves the show. Jeff Maxwell. Hello, Jeff. How you doing?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Sit down, please. Yeah, I'm good, Ryan, and it's so nice to be back here at MASH Matters. It's a lovely day out in sunny Southern California. It's about 12:30 on your traffic news, and we'll be right back after the. Oh no, that was a different life. Hey, here we are on episode 92, right? Episode 92.
92. Here we go, and this is a big episode because we have an interview with a very special somebody. This is, I think, our most requested guest. Who is not a main cast member. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, our most requested over the years was Alan Alda and Loretta and all them, and we've had them all. Everybody's been on the show.
Yes.
But this guy, all the time, opening up Twitter and Facebook and our emails, people saying, hey, you ever going to have that G.W. Bailey guy on the podcast?
Holy moly. Wow.
So here we are, and Jeff, this has been about 4 years in the making.
Yes.
I know you reached out to GW early on.
Yes.
And we were very close to having him on, I think, in year one. Then something fell through and other stuff got in the way. And
well, I think he actually heard the podcast.
Oh, well.
I said, sorry, I'm busy. Thanks very much, but I'm busy, guys.
Yeah, that's a problem when people actually listen to the podcast before they're on the podcast. That's kind of a deal breaker for a lot of them. Yeah.
No, he was a very busy guy. He's a terrific actor, and he's had like 13 television shows. I think he's been on 3 or 4 television series at one time. I don't remember the names, but boy,
yes,
good for him being that busy.
And a big part of my childhood growing up, not only with MASH but also Police Academy, and we do talk about Police Academy and some of his connections with some of the folks on that film series and how he gets to MASH, and it's just a fun interview. And GW is everything I expected and hoped GW would be. But before we jump into the interview, there is a listener email that came in a while back from Emily, and I just wanted to read her message here because it has to do with Rizzo. MASH continuity errors are something we discuss here a lot on the podcast, and the lack of continuity on MASH. And Emily says, hi, Jeff and Ryan. My name is Emily. I really enjoy your podcast. Even though I'm only 18, your show still manages to put a smile on my face. I've noticed 3 more continuity errors in the show, and all of them involve Rizzo. In the episode Captain Outrageous, G.W. Bailey actually plays a different character. In the episode Promotion Commotion, Rizzo is referred to as a corporal, but in every other episode, he's a sergeant. And in the episode Death Takes a Holiday, when Winchester lies to him about having a date, Rizzo asks if he could see if she had a friend. The idea of him having a wife must not have come up yet. I love the podcast and can't wait to listen to the next episode. Well, thank you, Emily. I'm so happy to say that our interview with GW answers 0 questions that you posed today. None of your questions are going to get answered in this interview, but we hope you enjoy this interview anyway. It's a lot of fun.
Without any further ado, why don't we tune in to hear our good buddy, Mr. G.W. Bailey. We have one of the stars of the police series, The Closer, playing the character of Detective Lieutenant Louis Provenza, which ran for 7 seasons on TNT from 2005 to 2012. He continued the same role in the spin-off show Major Crimes, produced from 2012 to 2018. He's also very well known for his appearances in the Police Academy films as Captain Thaddeus Harris. He's also been part of about 400 other shows that we don't have time to talk about. Our guest made his debut appearance as Staff Sergeant Luther Rizzo in the season 10 episode of MASH, The Yalu Brick Road. In that show, written by Mike Farrell, the 4077 suffered from salmonella poisoning brought on by Thanksgiving turkeys. Klinger scored for the camp. So, without any further ado, it gives us great pleasure to offer you our very enthusiastic welcome, Mr. G.W. Bailey. Sergeant Rizzo, thank you and welcome to MASH Matters.
Well, thank you. And it could not have been a better character to get messed up turkeys than Klinger.
Yeah, no kidding. I understand the dialogue. You said, you mean Klinger poisoned us with Thanksgiving surprise? And Potter says, it sure looks that way. And you say, now I hope I live just so I can kill Klinger. So that makes sense.
Because he got turkeys that gave us salmonella.
Yeah.
And of course, he said Sam and Ella.
Boy, well, so gosh, GW, it's so fun to talk to you. And, I travel around the country a little bit, and I am always asked about the character of Rizzo and you. You are a favorite of the show. So how do you think, people really love the character of Rizzo. You were about as cute and funny as you could be, but you were still kind of a scoundrel.
Very much a scoundrel. And, he'd cheat anybody that was willing to be cheated, was stupid enough to come across him. I remember David Stiers had some sort of gambling problem, and I exploited that. Which was, he got pissed. Oh, he was so angry when he saw the last script, and it said, Colonel Potter left on his horse, and the other people left this way and that. So he was leaving in the garbage truck with me.
Yeah,
right.
Oh, it made him mad, and I put an old, several days old banana under his seat, so he sat in and watched it. Oh, well, Jeff, you know how mad he can get.
Yeah, he'd get mad.
And then he announced that he was gay right before he died.
Yeah.
And I said that everybody said, gay? My God, he's now announcing it. He's coming out. He's been out since 1930. We were both gay. He's coming out.
It wasn't a real shock, was it? It wasn't a huge big secret to us. No, it wasn't.
He was a wonderful guy. I worked with him several times in other theater situations.
Mm-hmm.
And he was great to work with. He really was, except when you put a banana under.
I like those bananas.
He didn't take to that very well.
Why do you think Rizzo is such a popular guy? He did all these kind of crazy, weird things. Is it just because of your incredible charm?
Yeah, it's my charm. But it has to do with the same thing on Major Crimes and The Closer. I just got 30 or 40,000 hits on my birthday or on the Facebook. I don't keep Facebook. Somebody else told me that. I've never been on Facebook. But I don't know. Who I've been on the air in 6 or 7 years. Why would they continue? And they mentioned MASH, of course. Mm-hmm. Why would they continue to send me birthday stuff? Mm-hmm. It's amazing to me. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I feel great about it, but it's amazing to me. And it's amazing to me that he was very popular. And, he didn't do many shows. He didn't do many shows at all. And But the shows he did, they remembered. Mm-hmm. They really liked it. Yeah.
Well, it was kind of interesting too. You were in 14 episodes, and in those 14 episodes that you were in, you were always really a big part of the episode.
Yeah, I remember the one with Harry, and Harry has said that was his favorite episode that he did. It was where I taught him to drive.
Oh, yeah.
He was in driving class because he had gotten a ticket. And I had told him that it was a vehicle. It was my pronunciation, so he had to learn vehicle. Seeing Harry do that and learn that was worth the price of admission.
So how did you end up on MASH?
Well, I took a vacation that I could not get reimbursed for, and that's the way to get a job anytime in LA. Is you do something that costs you a lot of money that you can't get paid back. So I'll never forget. I was standing on the street. It was snowing. It was 4 a.m, and my wife at the time, bless her heart, June, had stayed out there. Had left and come back and just sat there in the heat, and I got in the car. But I had to be out when the bus came by. The bus didn't have a building. They just had to stop. And, out on the street. And so there I was in 4 a.m, and I had gotten a call for MASH. So I went back, and I had read the week before for a job, and they said, "Oh, we love you. We're going to hire you. We'll find something for you." You know how that goes. You know how that is. Mm-hmm. That's the kiss of death. So I said, "Well, I forget that." And then lo and behold, they called me back, and they had a part for me. And it was, I tell you whose part it was. It was Zago. What's his name?
Johnny Hamer.
Yeah,
it was Johnny Hamer, and it was Johnny's part, and it was a thing. And my script still said Johnny Hamer on it. And it said, "Mark out Johnny, right in Rizzo."
Oh wow! Wow.
Well, Johnny was a recurring like me.
Yeah,
but they didn't take to being told no. It was the casting director, that sweet lady, and the other people, and they didn't cotton to be told no. And there came a time I had to tell them no. I was doing something else, and I was recurring. They wanted me there, and I said, "Well, you're going to have to pay me a lot of money." And no, that shut them down.
that's
So I didn't work on the show for 6 months.
Wow.
And then I came back, but that's how I got the show. Johnny Hamer, they X'd him off and he died.
It's not good. So you didn't audition for a part called Rizzo?
No.
And then when you came back, did they write a part called Rizzo? And that's when you sort of created it?
Rizzo was from Brooklyn, and he was Italian from Brooklyn. And I did the day before I did the scene with me and what's his name, Harry. And I said we got poisoned turkeys from what's his name,
Klinger,
yeah. And I said we got sick turkeys, we got bad turkeys, and I said we got the turkey trots. And so the next day I arrived at work, and I got there about 11:30. So I got there, and they called me up to the office, and the assistant director called me up and said they would need you in the office. So all the way up there, I almost cried. I said, "Oh God, I'm being fired." Everybody. I sent out letters. I sent out everything. I was going to be on the #1 show in the country, and it was amazing. And I got up there, and I told them. I walked in. I said, they were all there. Bert was there, and everybody but Alan, but everybody else was there. And I said, "Guys, look, you don't have to say a word." I said, please don't say a word. I appreciate it, and I'll just leave. And I was about to leave.
Oh, God.
They said, "Oh, no. Wait. Bert said, "Wait, where are you going?" I said, "No, I'm going to home." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well, I assume I'm fired." He said, "Fired? We love you. It's just, you're just going to have to be from Louisiana." Because you ain't from Brooklyn. We could tell that.
Yeah.
That accent you used was definitely Cajun. And then, of course, I ended up with a wife named Lola and a boy named Billy Bubba, and he had no teeth. Of course, very few people in New Orleans are like that, but nonetheless, they didn't care.
I wonder if we could do that now. That might not play well.
Oh, I don't know.
When you came in and started playing Rizzo, how much of that was already on the page, and how much of that was you bringing that flavor to Rizzo?
Well, it was the writers knew me. The two writers who wrote me a lot knew me, and they had written a pilot with me in it before.
Okay.
And for what's her name? She's short and gorgeous. She's sweet as she can be. She did a series, and she was in Saturday Night Live. Not the Saturday Night Live, but Saturday Night Fever. Saturday Night Fever, which was
Donna Pescow?
Donna Pescow, the Donna Pescow show.
Yeah.
Okay. Pescow. Because that's the first time I worked with. See my poor mind. Doris Roberts.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And Doris played her mother or her secretary or something on that show. And Doris and I became fast friends, great friends. And she was her husband was from Texas. He was a great guy. He was a great guy. And then she up and died about a year or so ago. And her doctor said she had been to lunch, is where she had been. And he said, I can guarantee you somebody else has paid for it, whatever it was. That was her. That was just her. If you took her to lunch, you knew you were going to pay. She had lots of money to it. And she had lots of money, a lot of character, and a lot of talent. She was just an enormous, great gal. And she had 2 apartments on Central Park West.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she tore it all down and made it one huge apartment. Anyway, that is enough about Doris. This is supposed to be about me.
Yeah. So you pretty much brought Rizzo into the picture in terms of the character. You really sort of showed up with that.
Well, yeah, there's no question about it. But they were great writers, and they wrote for us. They wrote for me, and they wrote for you, Jeff. They wrote for all of us. They really did. Yeah,
once they got the character, boy, they were terrific at exploiting all of its benefits and virtues.
Yeah, exactly.
And was the fact, I know you were from Port Arthur, Texas.
Yeah.
And you came, with all that flavor of that area.
Yeah.
And, that was pretty good. I'm sure that obviously that went into Rizzo.
Yeah. Well, people need to understand Port Arthur is pronounced Port Arthur, and it's right in the Cajun country.
Yeah.
It's right on the Louisiana border. And it's more Cajun than Orange or Beaumont is. Mm-hmm. It's more Cajun than Louisiana in many ways.
Really?
Especially northern Louisiana, Shreveport. There's nothing Cajun about it. But down south, man, it's Lafayette and all those cities and Bossier down on the bottom. It was definitely Cajun.
Was there somebody from your past that you kind of based Rizzo on?
No, not really. I went to school with a guy named Jeff LeBlanc. And, I once had I don't know what I was doing, but I was a Cajun in it. They hired this dialogue coach and sent her to my room. And she was teaching me the names I had to say, like LeBlanc and Thibodeau and Hebert. And she said, now, we don't pronounce the H. It's not Hebert. It's Hebert. I said, really? No kidding. I said, well, this is the Tibby Ducks. What is that? Oh, that's Tibby. Oh, bless her heart. And she finally said, you've done this before. I said, sweetheart, I'm from Port Arthur. I grew up with these people. I know these people very well. My grandmother, we bought shrimp from the boats. That's where we bought shrimp.
Wow.
Go down and get 2-3 pounds. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Port Arthur, when I visited Port Arthur, that's the first time I sucked the head of a crawdad, which was wow. a little disturbing, but I did it. It was pretty good, actually.
Yeah, well, you suck the head in Port Arthur. You ain't sucking the real head. You sucking I don't know what. But, but a crawdad is different in New Orleans.
Don't tell me that now.
It's muddier. No, it's all the brains. People said the brains. I said, well, how much brain do you think is in a crawfish?
I guess the theory is there's a lot of butter in there and the sauce that they cook it in. So you're sucking the sauce and the butter and a tiny bit of brain. And that's about it.
Yeah, you might get a little brain in there, maybe. But most of it is butter, salt, and grease.
You grew up, and we know that you grew up with the wonderful singer, Janis Joplin.
Yes, I did, yeah.
Were you friends?
Oh, we were friends. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Everybody knew everybody in Port Arthur.
Yeah.
Small town, relatively. And we had only 2 high schools, one black, one white. Mm-hmm. That was the days of social segregation. And it was so ridiculous. Bubba went to Beaumont, and he went to a black high school. His father was a coach. His brother was also All-American. And Bubba was everybody's All-American at Michigan State. Mm. Bubba was a miracle. He was a walking, talking teddy bear. He really was. Mm. He just couldn't stand to hurt anybody. And that was what they'd get him pumped up by screaming what he wrote for his biography. He titled it. And the fans at Michigan State came up with it. They would say, kill, Bubba, kill. Kill, Bubba, kill. To get him riled up, And he'd go out there and just tear their heads off. And he was the nicest, sweetest man that ever lived. I mean, anybody that knew him. But Bubba and I went to high school together at the same time, 10 miles apart.
How about that?
The other high school in Port Arthur was Abraham Lincoln, and my high school was Thomas Jefferson, who owned slaves, of course, and Lincoln, who didn't own any. And Lincoln High was the Bumblebees, and we were the Yellow Jackets. Come on, bees, get that bow. We'd go out there on Friday night and watch the bees play.
Huh.
They were wonderful. They were colorful and great. They played great ball.
So was it just happenstance that you and Bubba appeared then together on Police Academy, or did one of you have something to do with the other?
No, total happenstance.
Huh.
I got there and Bubba was there. And I yelled out, "Hey, Bubba, what's long and hard on a third grader?" And he said, "I don't know, homeboy." And I said, "The third grade." Well, people ducked everywhere. And I said, "Well, he's a homeboy. I can say anything I want to him. He doesn't care." Anyway, I asked him what he thought about Beaumont today, because when he was a kid, we'd go down to Piccadilly, and they couldn't eat in Piccadilly. They couldn't walk in. And then later, they let them go in, but the blacks had to eat in a separate place in Piccadilly. And I asked Bubba what he thought about it those days. He said, "Oh, that didn't bother me." He said, "I came up, I eventually bought that whole block."
Oh, great. That's a great ending.
So all of the people, they ate my food.
That's great.
I bought awesome. The block. That's great.
Bubba was a big old boy. My birthday, he was there. My 40th, I think, my 50th birthday. And he was there. And everybody, it hurt my feelings. Everybody wanted a picture with Bubba. Nobody wanted my picture. They wanted their picture with Bubba. I remember it was Harry Morgan. And Harry, after he took his picture with Bubba, he said to me, "GW, who represents you?" And I said, "What do you mean who represents me?" He said, "Your agent." And some ne'er-do-well, I don't know what his name is. And I told him, I could remember. And he said, "Well, I'm looking for an agent." And I got so depressed about that. If somebody 80 years old is looking for an agent, God almighty.
Wow.
Harry Morgan, an agent, he's one of the greatest historical character actors in the history of the business.
Yeah.
He was great.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've done a lot of movies and a lot of television shows. Maybe this is an unfair thing to ask, but is there a difference or a small difference that you can see between MASH and any of the other shows?
No, not really, except that MASH, being television, was a lot faster. You laid it out pretty quick. You knew the characters, you knew you had that reading around the table, and pretty much that was where you expressed yourself, any difference that you had, and differences or problems. Harry always had a problem. and Loretta always had a problem of, it wasn't feminist enough, wasn't liberal enough, but she was great. And they were all wonderful. They really were. It was I was like a cousin come to visit. I mean, I was just like a nephew come to visit. And I'd stay up in the attic with the crazy uncle. And they were good to me, and I was good for them. And I just loved them. I loved them, every one of them. I just loved them. I loved them all, even the ones that said they didn't like me.
Yeah.
Jeff Maxwell, funny, genuinely funny.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
God, I remember the cooking show where you were cooking, and I forget what you were cooking, but they were supposed to line up, or I forget what it was.
That was pretty much it. I was cooking and people lined up. That was about my career there, which I was very happy to have, by the way.
Oh yeah, me too. I was paid $1,200 a week, and I was thrilled to get it.
Yeah, to be around that, to be in that show, and to be around the people, and to have that kind of energy. It was. I would have done it for free, maybe. But probably not.
Yeah. No, you always got to be paid something.
Absolutely.
Preferably more.
So after MASH, suddenly you became this kind of superstar in a way, and got into these films, and then got into these two other series. Wow, I mean that's a remarkable thing. Actors don't necessarily have that kind of career, and you have had and are still having a wonderful career. That's an amazing thing to go from that show and then into films and then into these two other series. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing to me, but of course. And I'll never forget, I met, what's his name? The guy who did Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, who was the genius behind MASH.
Larry Gelbart?
Larry Gelbart. Larry Gelbart and of course, Gene Reynolds.
Yeah.
I met Gene Reynolds over at Lou Grant.
Oh.
But I had never met Mr. Gelbart. I'd never met him. I talked to him on the phone. I called him. I called him once. I didn't mean to call him. I called the union when the writers were on strike, and I was out of town, and I just come back in town, and I was finding out where they wanted us to go to walk the picket line for the writers. I never forget. I was on the phone, and they connected me. They said, "You need to talk to the strike lieutenant," and they put me on and manning the phones, and it was Larry Gelbart. He said, "GW, is that you?" I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Who is this?" He said, "This is Larry Gelbart." Oh my God! Hello. I said, why are you answering the phones? He said, "Well, it's all they let me do because I'm so old. I couldn't walk out on the street. I couldn't walk out anymore. So they put me in here." And so, just a minute, I'll put you in terms of in place where you're supposed to go. So he clicked the phone, and of course, I ended up at Sports Talk or some damn thing. He had punched the wrong button, and so I got back to the original operator. And she said, "Oh, that's Mr. Gelbart. He always sends people to the wrong place." So I met him. I saw him years later. And he was coming out of the Universal, Sheridan Universal. And he stopped me. He stopped me, Jeff. Listen to this. He stopped me. The man stopped me and said, "GW, it is such a pleasure to meet you." He said, "What a family we had."
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, Gelbart, you have no idea." I said, "Oh." I never felt I was part of a family. I said, "Yeah, I only did, very few shows." He said, "If you did one, you did them all. You were a legacy, part of our legacy.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for being part of it." I said, "Oh," I was so moved, so dear that he would know me and that he would stop and talk to me like that. I was a big fan of his anyway, but man, I really became a fan after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was Larry Gelbart for me. That's the only time I ever met him. Jeff knew him. You knew him well, but I never got to meet him.
Yeah. He was an extraordinary guy. He really was. And I've often said, without Gene Reynolds and Larry Gelbart, I don't think we'd be talking about MASH right now had it not been for them. I don't think so.
No, they fought the battles with the network, and they fought the battles at home.
Yes.
They did it all. They kept that writer's room in shape. They were just aces guys. That's all there is.
Yeah, they really were. And they brought their own sensibilities to it with tremendous experience, that MASH thrived on. So it's, without them, that wouldn't be it.
So when you're out and about, do people recognize you more from The Closer and Major Crimes, or do they recognize you more from Police Academy or from MASH? What do you hear the most? Probably
not at all.
Excuse me, sir. Would you get out of the way, please?
Hey, old man. Oh no, I get a lot of the husband looking at the wife, and I can tell what they're saying. They're saying, "I didn't know he was still alive."
Yeah.
And I just go about my business. Oh, I suppose it's probably Police Academy, MASH, and then The Closer and Major Crimes.
Okay.
Probably MASH and Police Academy are neck and neck. Yeah.
Wow.
And a lot more people saw Police Academy than ever saw MASH, except for the final episode.
Well, you were really the last of the supporting players to exit the screen in that final episode. All the hoopla around that episode, not just the filming of it, but leading up to the airing and the celebrations and the craziness. What are your memories of that time?
Well, to be honest with you, I remember David Starr sitting on that banana. I remember.
You know, and now that you've said it, it's an image that I will probably not forget real quickly.
No, never. But David Starr being mad at me, and I remembered also that the props and the set pieces. It was like locusts had been through there. Everything was taken down and taken away. It was people in people's homes. So there was a mash can where the mash where you'll recognize it, Jeff. It's where the people went to the bathroom, and it was way up on the wall, way hung up on the wall, way up high, because it had to be out of the way, not in the camera's way. So it was way up high, and I said to the prop man, I said, "Is that spoken for?" He said, "No." You want? I said, "Yeah, I'd love to have it." And it's hanging in my bathroom right this second.
That's great. That's where that thing went.
As one of my granddaughters. She knows I was in MASH because when she goes to pee, she looks at it every time. The big red X on it, the big red cross.
How about that?
Hangs in my bathroom to this day.
Why do you think MASH has been around so long? I mean, we're talking about, we're doing a podcast about it, and it's on, this the 50th anniversary. People are all excited about it. We're doing interviews about it, and there was a television documentary about it. What do you think? Why was it so powerful to all these viewers?
Well, I think it was a part of America that, that we were at a war. We were in a war for a very short time, but it wasn't really a war, We never declared war. We just managed to kill a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
Of course, there's no knowledge of it among the kids, and I say kids, I mean 20s and 30-year-olds and down. They don't know what the Vietnam War was. They have no idea the influences that had, much less the Korean War.
I think a lot of Americans know about the Korean War based on their knowledge of it from MASH.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very true.
And because MASH, MASH did it over the 11 years, took on a lot of themes that, other shows wouldn't touch. I mean, it dealt with racism and sexuality and all kinds of things that a lot of other shows kind of wouldn't do. But they went after it.
They wouldn't do it at all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all.
And luckily, the writing staff was so good that it could navigate those things without being perhaps offensive, and with a good degree of humor, so people could tolerate it and hear the message, and engage with it.
GW, for many years now, you've been involved with a foundation called the Sunshine Kids, and I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about that and what you do and how people can find more information about that.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I don't do anything anymore.
Oh, really?
I got so old they got rid of me.
Oh,
okay.
I mean, there just comes a point where you're too old and you're too cantankerous. I just couldn't do it anymore. I'd been the executive director for 20 years, and I had run the organization basically for 25 or 30, and then I had 16 years as a volunteer and working hard. 36 years was enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I stepped away, and other people stepped in, and good people, wonderful people, and they're doing a great job. I still I'll be down at the Mardi Gras. I'll be at the Texas trip. I probably will go to the New York trip. I go to the trips I like, and I go at my own expense. I go and I talk to the kids. I talk to them, and I go to some events with them.
Yeah.
So they can see me, and they know, they have a sense of history of who I was, and that sort of thing.
And what does the Sunshine Kids Foundation do?
Mainly what we do are our national trips. Our national trips consist of, let's say 20 to 26 kids with cancer that go with us to, let's say, New York City. We come to LA. And what we'll do on a trip is typical of LA. We'll do the tourist things, Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm and those things. But also we do a trip to Catalina. We do a sightseeing tour. We meet a lot of celebs. We go to a lot of houses. We go to a lot of picnics. Spend the time on the set. Big Bang Theory was always great. The cast would have lunch with them.
Nice.
And then, of course, when the head of NBC, what's his name, died of cancer, sweet man, God, wonderful man.
Tartikoff.
When Tartikoff was Paramount, and before that he was head of NBC, he would always have us and he at Paramount, he would send out word and people would say, "Oh, I don't have time," and then the word would come down. Well, of course, if you don't have time, I understand, but this is my favorite charity. They would show up in droves. And we have great pictures of big stars with them.
That's great.
But big stars loved them. They took great care of them, and they came to visit later, and they would come boating with us or the fishing or whatever we did. We just did whatever came to our minds. See, we were a bunch of party people. That's all. That's what we were. In our group, no one ever had a degree in social work or in. There is no degree in what we do.
Just helping kids who need help. Yeah.
We had our major corporate sponsor. Well, it used to be Prudential, and then Prudential sold to Berkshire Hathaway, which is what's his name's company, Warren Buffett.
Mm-hmm.
Our major source of income is probably individuals.
There's a website, sunshinekids.org, and we'll put the link to that in the show notes for this episode if anybody wants to go and find out more about the Sunshine Kids Foundation. And if you would like to make a donation, you can do that through the website.
Well, listen, you've been a wonderful guest here, and we really appreciate you being here. I know so many people, I got to tell you, love you, and certainly they love all of the roles that you've done. But because we're so involved with MASH, people talk to us all the time about you and how much they love Rizzo and how fun it was to see you and watch you. So you know that you are very loved that way because we hear it all the time. So we're passing that along to you.
Please tell them hello, the ones that care.
Yeah.
They care.
Yeah. I was going to say anything you'd like to tell them.
As Sally Field said, you like me.
You really like me.
Speaking as somebody who grew up watching you on MASH and also grew up heavily influenced by the Police Academy movies, I thank you and I like you and I appreciate everything that you've done. Your career is just, I've followed it for so many years. In fact, I want to tell you too, because I'll never have an opportunity to tell you this except for right now. I have a soft spot for the movie Burglar because it's based on a book series by Lawrence Block that I read for many, many years. And because of your appearance in that film, I cannot read any of the Bernie Rodenbar books without imagining you as Ray. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome.
Oh, gosh, Delia, thank you so much for being here. And I like you too. I didn't read those books, but I like you too.
Good.
And, all the MASH issues that, Ryan and I, Ryan grew up watching the show. I kind of grew up being on the show and working there. And for me, it was a job. And for Ryan and a lot of other listeners, it was something that they would bond with all the characters. I bonded with all the people rather than the characters. So it's an interesting, thing for me to have done this podcast and hear how emotional people are about the show. Whereas I'm going, yeah, but, I didn't get paid as much as I should have. And it was a job.
Well, speaking of pay, let me tell you a quick Alan Alda story. Alan was making like $265,000 a week, and I was paid maybe $1,000 a week, when I did an episode.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I would have 90% of the dialogue and 1% of the money.
Yeah.
And so I asked him once. He was on the phone with Oklahoma, trying to get Oklahoma to pass the Women's Rights Amendment. And he wasn't having any luck with Oklahoma. And I said, Alan, he said, well, and he put him on hold. He said, yes. I said, let me ask you, do you realize how much we get paid as opposed to you and the others? And he says, I don't have anything to do with the money. Now you understand that. I don't have anything to do with the money. That's CBS. They do it all. I don't have anything to do with the money. You got to talk to them.
Yeah.
I never saw a man crab so fast in my life. He crabbed away from that money. Boy, he didn't want to talk about the money. But he was a great guy. He was very sweet to me. As long as I didn't talk about money.
Yeah. Hey, GW, thank you very much. We love you. Consider this podcast your podcast. Anytime you want to come on and talk about something, you know where to get a hold of me. And I hope to see you down the road. We have a cup of coffee or a chicken pie sometime. That would be great. I'd love to see you.
I ordered some shrimp and crawfish in.
Hey, all right.
There you go.
I'm going to suck those brains right out of there.
Cut those brains, baby. See y'all.
Well, that was delightful. Loved talking to Mr. G.W. Bailey. Thank you, Jeff, for reaching out and getting him on the show, because that was a dream come true for me, really.
Well, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy dragging him, kicking and screaming to our podcast, but we got him. I had to hit him hard around the head and throat, but finally he showed up.
Yeah, he doesn't really have email or Facebook. I think you had to reach out to him via carrier pigeon, didn't you?
Something I had to go to a tree or something and talk to the tree. I don't remember, but it was painful. But GW, he is a force of nature, and he's a wonderful guy. And I remember some years ago, he and I were involved in a project that was one of my great ideas that never panned out. I was in Port Arthur, Texas. Mm-hmm. And my partners and I had come up with a wonderful movie idea called Galleria, which was a movie that took place completely inside of a shopping mall. And back then, gallerias and shopping malls had just kind of, were just born. They were just kind of coming into their own instead of main streets. So main streets were pretty upset about gallerias becoming very popular because it was killing businesses. But Galleria businesses were not unhappy. So my friends and I thought that this was an interesting socio-economic, interesting kind of situation. So we wrote this movie called Galleria. And I happened to hook up with GW, and we were in Port Arthur, Texas. And because he's from Port Arthur, I said, GW, if you're not in this movie, it's not going to be a good thing in the world. He agreed. And he had a part that we wrote for him, and it was very funny, and it was a lot of fun, and it was wonderful. And if anybody wants to buy a script from me, they're $42,000 a piece, and I'll be happy to send it to you. I'll even autograph it. But the movie never got made.
Yeah.
But GW was great, and I still look forward to maybe someday doing the movie. We'll be in walkers, but it's okay.
And maybe malls will come back by then. You just never know.
Could be. You never know.
Or maybe your movie could, spur the rebirth of malls.
It could, yes. And one of our listeners calls up with $100 million.
Yes.
We'll be happy to make that movie.
Yes, please call up with $100 million. Yeah. Or if you want to, you can just go to Patreon and support us on a monthly basis. You can give us $100 million a month if you want to. We want to thank some of our Patreon supporters, our VIPs, including Private Edward Gibbons Brown.
And Private Chris McHarry.
Private Mark Staten.
Corporal Brandon Johnson.
Captain Jolene Zimmel.
Captain Jim Simnett.
Captain Tina Geschwinder.
And Major Charles Jones.
And Major Chris Seaton. Thank you for supporting the show and being a part of the madness that is MASH Matters. We will be back with a new episode with new questions and a few answers to those questions. Jeff, I recently had a work trip down to Florida, and I used the occasion of the flight there and back to go through all of the messages that have accumulated, all of the emails and the voicemails and tweets and everything that have come in, all these great listener questions and messages, and then counted up. I think we have in the neighborhood of 140, 150 messages that we have not yet read or answered, and then about 25 or so voicemails that we haven't gotten to. So be patient. If you haven't heard your message or voicemail yet, it may or may not be played on a future episode. But yeah, there's a lot, but we still want more. So you can reach out to us, mashmatterspodcast@gmail.com. Facebook, Instagram. We're on Instagram. Mashmatters.com is our website too.
And we have a very interesting thing coming up. Ryan, you and I have worked on this for the past few months, actually, and I have a big surprise for you. I think we have solved the problem. I won't say of what, but we have solved the problem we've been working on for quite some time.
I know what you're talking about, and if that's the case, then that is pretty darn cool, and I think listeners are going to really, really enjoy that.
Yep.
That's a tease. We're just big teases here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's 10:30 on the freeway today, and it's sunny out on... Okay. No,
not that kind of a tease. Not that kind of a tease. All right. Until next time, here's looking up your old address.